All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Twin Talks Ballet. My name is Kirsten, and I'm here with my good friend, Leah, who is here to help me talk about how to develop a healthy relationship with food and our bodies while we are all staying at home due to the coronavirus. So, welcome, Leah, and thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Kristen. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, and obviously, those are topics that I love talking about.
Yes, yes. And I'm really thrilled to be speaking about this right now because I know um, with many of us facing uncertainty and a huge disruption in our routines, not only is our exercise routine affected quite greatly,
Yeah.
but also we have a lot of time at home with ourselves. We have food around us, and many unhealthy thoughts and patterns with food and with our bodies tend to
Mhm.
come back, just flooding into our awareness as we have more space to be with those uncomfortable thoughts
Yes.
and feelings. So I'm really just glad that we're able to address this because I know this is a struggle many dancers are facing right now.
Mhm.
So it is sadly relevant, but I'm very happy to hopefully just give this video to dancers who need some words of reassurance as well as some practical guidance on how to navigate this and hopefully use it as a time to develop that healthy relationship with themselves and appreciation for their bodies and freedom with food. So hopefully this video is like the first step for some dancers in that direction.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Hey friend, I just want to briefly pause today's video to ask you how often you've heard the term ballet is just as mental as it is physical. I think we can all acknowledge and agree on the fact that your mind is what controls your body, and the state of your mind drastically affects how you feel in the studio, how well you're able to perform, and your overall level of satisfaction and confidence as a person. I would like to also ask you if you're experiencing negative spirals of thoughts frequently in class, an inability to focus because you're so in your head, and maybe you're noticing a lot of insecurities coming up frequently that cause you to shrink and hold back and not really be able to dance as well as you think you can or you know you can. Maybe you aren't really sure if dancing is for you and you're feeling burnt out, but you don't want to quit because you don't know what else you would do. Maybe you need to be grounded more in who you really are apart from dance. Maybe you're struggling with an injury and you need to regain trust with your body again. Or you're doing just fine, but you feel like you can have a little bit more confidence and you're not quite living up to your potential and what you really believe is possible for yourself. Well, as a mindset coach for dancers and a former professional dancer myself, I completely understand and empathize with these struggles. I've been through all of them myself. And now, as a master practitioner of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, I help recreational to world-class dancers overcome their mental blocks, whether that be insecurities, lack of confidence, self-doubt, whatever it is they're struggling with. I help them resolve and overcome that and step into confidence so that they can finally achieve their personal and professional goals as dancers. And really, what I love is helping dancers achieve joy and confidence in the studio again, because that is not only what unlocks their best dancing, but it's what helps them to connect with the reason why they started all this in the first place. Because, if we're not enjoying what we're doing, why are we doing ballet in the first place? It's too hard if you don't love it. So if you are interested in seeing if mindset coaching will be just the thing to get you into that experience in the studio that you've always wanted and to help you fulfill your potential as an artist, I would love to talk to you. I always offer for everybody a free 1-hour consultation with me where we uncover what's really stopping you and blocking you from achieving your goals. We talk about what your goals and aspirations are and what really inspires you about them, what is important to you about them. And then lastly, if we're a good fit for each other, we talk about what the coaching process would look like for you and what I would recommend as far as how long we work together. So I would love to speak with you. If you would like to discover more about what mindset coaching is, what the process is like, what the benefits are, as well as read some fantastic testimonials from my former clients, visit kirstenkemp.com and schedule your free consultation. I look forward to talking with you. Let's get into the video.
So, Leah, would you mind telling us a bit more about yourself and your background and kind of what got you to doing what you're doing today?
Absolutely. I am a professional freelance ballet dancer
Mm-hmm.
and a certified nutrition health coach. So I have always loved food. You can always find me cooking and baking, and that is definitely one of my hobbies and passions.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also always been interested in the more technical side of food. Where like how do foods affect our body, so that's something that I'm always researching and studying about. And then, like a lot of dancers, my personal experience with body image issues and restrictive dieting has really played a role in how I want to help others. I am a perfectionist, like a lot of dancers, and I used to be so focused on eating perfectly.
Right.
And eating a certain way because I thought that that's what I had to do in order to be a successful dancer. And
Mm.
that was what was going to make my dancing the best that it could be. And looking back now, I realized that that restriction, I was not only not eating enough, but these food rules and parameters that I put around my eating was also really affecting me mentally,
Mm.
to the point where that's all I was thinking about was what was I supposed to eat that day and what did my body look like. And I wasn't focusing during classes and rehearsals, and I was just in a really negative space where I talked down about myself and my body constantly. And so about 4 years ago, I kind of had enough, and I just started unknowingly moving into an intuitive style of eating.
Mm.
So allowing myself to eat all foods. And as I saw my body change and grow stronger, I actually realized how much happier I was, not only in terms of I had this freedom with food, but I enjoyed dancing so much more, and I had so much more strength, and I wasn't injured as much, and my mental space was so much better.
Mm.
And I became a more happier, vibrant person. And that is something that I want other dancers, especially young dancers who are in intense training environments, to just hear about, and know that if that's something that they're going through, that it's normal
Mm.
to be going through that, but it's also something that you can talk to someone about and that you can get to the other side of. So that's why
Absolutely.
I'm so passionate about what I do.
Yes. And for the dancers watching, they can talk to you about these struggles
Yes.
because as a certified nutrition health coach, you not only have the experience of a dancer to be able to empathize with, honestly, the standards of the industry,
Mhm.
unhealthy messages that a lot of dancers are getting around their bodies, and even blatantly being told by teachers, you should be eating this and not this, you should look
Mhm.
this way. We're surrounded by arbitrary but very unhealthy standards and
Mhm.
a lot of unhealthy messages. So you get that from experience, you've overcome that, and then also you have the training to really support dancers through mending that relationship with food
Mhm.
in their bodies. So I'm so excited to have you on, and just I hope that dancers really do take advantage of the services you provide because so many of us need it, even if we don't admit it to ourselves. So thank you for what you do.
Yeah, well, I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for having me again.
Of course. So, my first question is, what are some of the main blocks that you see dancers facing in having a healthy relationship with their bodies and with food?
Mhm. This is such a good question because it can not only come from blocks that we put up ourselves, but also things that we experience in a dance environment. So, one of these things is this image of perfection. And we all know, we've all heard of the stereotypical ballet dancer body. And thankfully, I feel like the dance world is moving away from it a little bit as
Hmm.
more and more professional dancers kind of defy these norms, which is awesome and amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I still feel like um, dancers are learning to diet or compensate for um, maybe their genetics,
Yeah.
or just with what they're seeing in other dancers. So they're dieting or over exercising in order to obtain an unhealthy size.
Mm.
Um, and these behaviors are really normalized,
Yes.
and are almost being seen as, oh, it's just you being healthy as a dancer.
Yeah, or really
And
hardworking, right? Like, we have
yeah,
such a can-do attitude so often that it's like, you can even say, "Screw you, genetics. I'm going to develop a totally different body." And it's just a standard that is completely unsustainable.
yeah, absolutely. So it's that image of perfection, as well as a lot of dancers have that tendency to pursue
Mm,
perfection
yeah.
as much as possible. And then we also see it in environment. So if you see a lot of dancers who have those unhealthy food and exercise patterns, and you either you see their, whether their physical body and that's something that you aspire to be, or they get they're casted better,
Mm,
or they get more attention from those in leadership positions, then other dancers are more likely to start those unhealthy habits,
right.
because that is what is being modeled. Um, so it's really unfortunate where kind of the environment really can determine how dancers, uh, create their body image
Mhm.
and relationship with food. Um, and
Yeah.
also in environments, I know you experienced this as well, where dancers are talking negatively about their bodies all the time.
All the
Um,
time.
and just picking apart not only what they look like, but their abilities as well. And in many groups, this is become a normal way to behave and converse with one another. And this
Mhm.
is really unhealthy, um, just in terms of not only talking negatively about ourselves, but we start to see ourselves in a different light. So that's something that
Absolutely.
can really keep us from having a positive body image.
Mhm.
Um, and then the third thing I see is when dancers don't have someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of times when we feel isolated or alone in our circumstances, these feelings perpetuate this negative restriction with food or over exercising cycle. And we learn to normalize these unhealthy behaviors and
Mm.
justify them. And we accept it as our reality. Like, this is what we have
Yeah.
to do in order to be a dancer. Like, this is just what has to happen. And I was right there. And I think
Mm.
because I didn't know that I could talk to someone and that these behaviors weren't actually normal, that I held on to them for so long.
Exactly.
Um, and then the fourth thing is food rules, which is something I talk about a lot.
Yes.
Um,
Good.
and these are these are like where dancers are perfectionists and they want to adhere to rules and be in control. This is a way that sometimes we as dancers do that, is by putting parameters around not only what foods we eat, but when we eat or how we eat. So this could be putting foods into good or bad
Mm.
categories, um, calorie counting, food tracking, um, telling yourself that you can't eat after a certain time, or that you can only have 3 meals a day, or that you can only have one snack. All of these things lead us away from being able to listen to our body's hunger and fullness cues, as well as the cravings that we have. So that's something that definitely increases that disassociation from being able to recognize uh, what our bodies need, and kind of how to overcome that to have a normal relationship with food and with our body.
Yeah, those are four really excellent and very true points. And it's so interesting that as you assimilate more into the environment and you
Mhm.
lack the power of differentiation really between
Mhm.
you, your own will and volition and autonomy,
Yeah.
who you are, what your own needs are, as as many of us grow up from a young age in this environment or series of different environments that have the
Mhm.
same kind of air to them, it is totally understandable and sadly natural for dancers to lack that experience of understanding how they can differ in their ability to choose to listen to their own thoughts or see who they are versus who are the people around me, how are they behaving versus how do I want to behave or
Mhm.
naturally behave. You know, as we assimilate so much into these companies and schools, sometimes we can feel as if there's no choice. Oh, I just have to
Mhm.
follow these food rules. I just have to look this way. I have to think this way. Everyone is talking about themselves like this, so I do
Mhm.
too. And it's an incredibly empowering process when actually dancers like you and like me in different ways say, I've had enough of this. And
Mhm.
then through that, just separation from the environment, you begin to see how you are different and have always been
Mhm.
different at the core from your environment. And that's a super empowering process to reclaim your own power to choose and kind of jump outside of that mental box of the environment or the mental box
Yeah.
that hands you, so to speak. And
Yeah.
so I just want to say that to encourage dancers that you can start to learn how to differentiate or ask yourself questions of how am I different than my peers. um, and I think that will tie into learning to get more in touch with your
Mhm.
intuitive cues and your body's cues. Like that's one big step. Learn and
Mhm.
get curious about how you are different from your environment. um, so that was
Absolutely.
just what I was inspired to share
Yes.
based off of what you said. Now the second question I have for you is about finding that balance between a dancer's love of structure. So many dancers thrive
Mhm.
with rules and structure. It's a strength of many of us, but what can be a strength for many can also be a weakness. So I've noticed in working with many dancers myself as a mindset coach is that there can be this big fear of living intuitively, whether that's in regard to food or finding their next career path, whatever it is, there can be this mistrust of following their internal guidance system because that
Mhm.
seems to be totally separate from following the rules and there's safety in rules.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we both know, and I think many viewers can start to see how that does impact the way they interact with food. So, in your opinion, how can dancers start to let go of some of those strict rules and actually find safety in intuitive eating?
Mhm. Yeah, that's such a good question and an important question to answer.
Mhm.
I think it's really hard because um, obviously, too much of a good thing can turn into a bad thing. Sorry, my dog.
That's okay.
um, hey, bud. Um, so, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. And that's
Right.
when kind of those behaviors can turn into something negative.
Mm.
So, first off, acknowledging that changing your mindset or behavioral patterns surrounding food or body image is not something that it can be done overnight and
Mhm.
isn't something that will necessarily be easy. It's going to be a journey. It's not a destination. You're not going to just like arrive
No.
and then not have to do anything else.
Yeah.
So it's going to be something that you're constantly um, going to feel like you're going to have to work on. And some days it might feel like you're focusing on it more, and other days it becomes less and less. But it's a
Yeah.
journey. Sometimes it takes like you're taking a few steps backwards before
Mm.
you can move forward. Um, and second, it's important to, during this time, focus on how your body feels
Mhm.
rather than how you perceive your body in the mirror, because
Yeah.
that's really what our reflection is. It's our own perception
Mm.
of what our body looks like. Um, and so, with most dancers, it's helpful to take small steps away from a restrictive style of eating rather than trying to change everything all at once. So maybe during this time, just try not tracking calories if that's something that has been kind of like a staple for you,
Mm.
whether on paper or in your head. Maybe start integrating foods that you have written off as foods that you aren't allowed to eat, making those small steps and not focusing on looks, but focusing on how you feel. Like, do you have more energy? Are you do you have like more endurance during the
Yeah.
day? Do you feel stronger? Especially once we go back to dancing, are you injured less? That's
Mhm.
something huge that we see when dancers are fine, when dancers make sure that they're getting enough food,
Mhm.
that their injuries decrease. It's,
Yeah.
it's great.
And they're
um,
probably happier too, because
yeah.
when you go in the pantry or you go to a restaurant and suddenly you feel the freedom to, I mean, I know so many of us relate to this. Like, I remember how not fun it was to just always go to the salad section of the menu every
Hmm.
time and just feel like everything else is bad, 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 bad.
Hmm.
And then being able to order a sandwich if I want a sandwich. I
Yeah.
don't have to eat the whole thing if it's too much to eat, but not labeling
Yeah.
it as bad or being afraid of going in your kitchen or being
Hmm.
afraid of your own body is so freeing. So there's a huge
Yeah.
emotional benefit too.
Yeah. And then definitely, there's always that feeling of structure that
Yeah.
dancers want. And I've been thinking of like, how do we channel that in a positive way, in a way that's not going to turn into another restrictive or harmful habit?
Mm,
Because I think that's sometimes what can happen is you just replace one obsessive habit with another.
right.
And so, for those who are looking for more structure, maybe just doing more research on intuitive eating. So, two of my favorite resources. One is a book on intuitive eating. It's by two dietitians who actually came up with the theory. I'm going to botch their names, but their names are Evelyn Treble and Elise Reich, I want to say. Amazing book. And then also on YouTube, there's a dietitian named Abby Sharp.
Hmm.
Um, and she has a great series on intuitive eating.
Yeah.
And intuitive eating, it's not a rule book, as like what you would picture a diet to be like, but it has guidelines for you to work towards. And it more has to do with your mindset surrounding food. It doesn't
Right.
actually have to do with parameters put around food.
Hmm.
So I feel like this could be helpful for those who are looking for some sort of structure and something to like work towards so that they know
Yeah.
the direction to go in, rather than just feel like they're trying to do this thing blindly.
Yeah.
For
That's
sure. I
amazing.
think, yeah. Um, and the difficult part with all of this is knowing that your physical body might change.
Hmm.
That is probably one of the biggest fears that dancers have. And especially if you have been restricting your caloric intake from a young age, and especially if you are female. Our
Right.
bodies are supposed to grow and develop. And I know that's something that is difficult for a lot of dancers to go through. Um, but just know that your current health and your health in the long run are so, so much more important.
Yeah.
Um, that is something that I definitely discovered on my journey, is how important it is, for my own physical health and for my future health, because this is the body
Yeah.
that will take you past ballet, into your career after it. And um, so it's important to make sure that you're really taking care of it. It might feel like you are letting yourself go, or that you're being lazy or undisciplined.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
and those feelings might pop up. And it's so important to talk to someone about this, whether it
Yeah.
be a friend, a family member, another dancer who also understands how important it is to have a healthy body image in relationship with food, or really talk to someone like a registered dietitian, a nutritionist, or a certified health coach,
Mhm.
who all have different capabilities in terms of helping dancers with those concerns.
Yeah.
And just surrounding yourself with a support system that really encourages you to pursue true health as a dancer, and having a healthy physical body as well as a healthy mindset. I think those are all things that are important. As well as one more thing, but knowing your why.
Yeah.
This is so important because for me, even when I was like, why am I doing this again? Being able to look back and see what I wrote down as why am I going through this right now, really helped me stay focused on this journey.
Mm.
And knowing that like chronic restrictive eating can lead to things like fatigue and muscle loss, under functioning immune system, loss of your menstrual cycle, and
Yeah.
it can increase your injury susceptibility and increase the likelihood of anxiety and depression. And
Right.
those are all things that are a part of a healthy dancer. And so it is in our best interest to really make sure that we're fueling our bodies appropriately and making sure that we are getting the food that we need. Um,
Absolutely.
because true health in this way will actually improve your dancing capacity. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. So many just extremely valuable points you made there. And I love that you brought up the importance of mindset, because truly
Mhm.
you could be following a rule system, and hiding behind that rule system is really a feeling of inadequacy, or
Mm.
um, a lack of trust in your body. And it sounds like one of the fundamental aspects of being free to eat intuitively and to even live intuitively is having a healthy relationship with yourself and your body. You have to
Mhm.
have a certain level of trust in your body, in addition to
Yes.
that strong connection to why you're doing this, why you're
Mhm.
choosing to heal, and why you're choosing healthier patterns, even if the uncertainty is scary. You don't know if your
Mhm.
body's going to change. You don't know how it's going to change. And it might even change for the better. I don't typically
Mhm.
like to sell that too much, because
Yeah.
I don't want to, promote the idea that, hey, if you start eating intuitively, you're going to get skinnier. Because that just, again, it feeds more unhealthy motivation. But
Yep.
honestly, there are some cases where you'll be surprised at, maybe you'll get a little bit more toned just because you're able to build more muscle, a
Mhm.
healthy muscle, or that lack of stress, lack of cortisol does help you to let go of some bloating or whatever it is.
Mhm.
That can happen. So even though I don't like to sell those as points to, fuel that motivation just to be unhealthily thin, um,
Mhm.
what I'm really trying to get at is mindset is super important. Trust in your
Mhm.
body is, I think that's foundational to being free to eat intuitively. Um, and actually, I kind of have an example of, I was working with one of my clients, and we happened to do a session around her relationship with food. Um,
Mhm.
and she said that the week after, when she just learned to trust her body and she just tried it out, I said, like, hey, let's just try out these patterns, this new way of eating and being
Mhm.
for a week. And she's like, yeah, I could do that. A week later, she comes back and she says, it was absolutely incredible how much more mental space I had to think about other
Mhm.
things when I wasn't thinking about food. And it made her
Yeah.
recognize how many hours in a day she was giving up
Yeah.
in her mind to food. And
Yeah.
it's so freeing, just mentally, emotionally, and physically, to have that healthy and just normal relationship with food, quite honestly. So thank you
Absolutely.
for modeling that and for those really awesome points.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that I struggled with, and just thinking of where I am now
Yeah.
versus where I was 6 and 7 years ago, and just thinking how I would never want to go back. Um, in
Yeah.
terms of like where I was mentally, and how I treated my body and how I saw my body,
Right.
and how much just happier and so much more full of life, and
Mhm.
how much more I enjoy dancing. It's just something that I would never want to go back to.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I could talk a lot longer, but
Same.
I will go to the third question, which is,
Yeah.
in your opinion, what do you think it looks like to really have a healthy relationship with your body and with food?
hmm Um, these are two things that kind of work together. So, first, we'll kind of focus on having a healthy relationship with food, which again is not something that you will just suddenly arrive at, and you will be good. As we mentioned, it's a relationship, so it
Right.
will be ongoing work. Um, but having a healthy relationship with food, in my opinion, is allowing yourself to eat any and all foods, without guilt or shame. So you don't have to eat. For example, I absolutely hate peas. I don't have to eat peas because I don't like them. But there are so many other vegetables that I absolutely love, and I can eat dessert when I want to, and it I have a little bit, and it satisfies that craving, and I can just sit there and enjoy it. So it's being able to enjoy food without guilt or shame, and being able to recognize and trust your body, and that at its core, it craves foods that you need. It's kind of what we were talking about earlier, with really trusting your body. So sometimes you might find that it really wants like a fresh filling salad with like quinoa and chicken and, all these veggies. But sometimes you really just want like your body just really needs a burger. And, and I it's not limiting yourself anymore to only having the most perfect thing,
Yeah.
or the healthiest thing,
Mm.
anymore. It's really focusing on, giving your body, what it wants and
Mhm.
what it needs, and also listening to your hunger cues. Something I find a lot with dancers is they will kind of put off, um, a snack or even a meal, even when they're hungry, in order to like save it for later.
Mhm.
And I know it sounds so silly, but you really need to, when you are hungry, eat. um, and make sure that you are getting the fuel to get you through long days of dance and rehearsals. And hunger cues look different for everyone. So that's something that you will learn, with experience. But yeah, just not limiting yourself to, I can only eat at this time, or I have to wait. You
Yeah.
don't have to wait to eat. If you are hungry, you need to eat.
Thank you
Period.
for that validation. Yes. It's
Yes.
funny how we're made with these cues that tell us when to do things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Funny
It's
how that
amazing.
works.
And then having a healthy relationship with your body goes hand in hand with this. That acknowledging that your body has these, cravings and hunger cues, that we can learn about with establishing a healthy relationship with your body. And you can appreciate your body for the amazing things that it's able to do. Like dance is not normal, and our bodies
Nope.
should not be able to do it. um, and our body is just gratitude that it keeps us physically healthy,
Yeah.
by letting you know when to eat, when to sleep, when to rest.
Mm.
Our bodies are really amazing,
Yeah.
at letting us know, really what it needs. And it also means having a healthy body image, is ditching negative self-talk.
Yeah.
This is really difficult, and it was really hard for me. But our worth isn't based on a number on a scale, a size of clothing, looking a certain way. So focusing on how your body feels and cultivating a sense of gratitude for every aspect of yourself, inside and out. So those are
Absolutely.
all important things.
I agree with you so much there.
Yeah.
My next question is about really misconceptions that
Mhm.
dancers have. So, what fears or misconceptions do you see that are holding a lot of dancers back from adopting intuitive eating patterns?
Mhm. I think some of these kind of were hinted at earlier, but we definitely it's good to expand upon. So,
Mhm.
one of them is that you have to be a certain size or have a certain body type in order to be a successful dancer.
Yeah.
Thankfully, more and more professional dancers are defying this stereotype, but it's still something that a lot of dancers struggle with, especially those dancers who are younger before they're hitting that professional environment and are trying to get a job. And then also, even though more undieting approaches to nutrition are becoming more mainstream, like mindful eating and intuitive eating, um, a lot of nutrition information that is readily available, like Google searches, Pinterest, fitness magazines, Instagram,
Mm.
fitness things, include a lot of misinformation about nutrition and that are stemming from
Yes.
diet culture. A lot of these have to do like with establishing daily calorie limits that are way, way under what anyone should eat, much less an active dancer.
Mhm.
And so it's important to not focus on those. Um, and then um, also, these sources often promote food rules or restrictive eating behaviors that are really harmful mentally and physically. So that's another factor. A third one is a lot of dancers think that weight is a factor of health or a factor of their success. And weight is simply our gravitational pull towards the earth. Um, Dancers and students all have very active lives, and this is not something that we need to worry about. um, Being underweight does not increase your dancing ability or your success in terms of your strength, but it can really have some negative and harmful side effects. So that is also something that is a fear that I think holds dancers back. And then the
Yeah.
last one is that enjoying food, especially foods that are usually on a bad list, enjoying these foods means that you're lazy or undetermined. Um,
Yes.
many dancers, yeah, many dancers think that discipline and having a strict way of eating means that you're more dedicated, and that then
Yeah.
you will be more successful.
Oh my gosh. There's this
But
glorification of
yes,
it's like, okay, I meant to bring this up earlier. I've seen that there's this like very subconscious sense of my mind is like the righteous part of me that has it all
mm,
right. And then there's my body, and my body is my enemy. So I am constantly at war seeing
yeah,
how strong my mind can get and how strong my willpower can be to just beat my body down into submission. And the more control you have over it, the more you can like flaunt how strong you are and how much of a strong athlete you are, and how resilient and hardworking and whatever discipline you are.
hmm,
And that I think is really something that is celebrated still in our field.
yeah,
And it creates just this tremendous amount of inner tension. And then even not just in relation to food, but what I've noticed in working with dancers and being a dancer myself is there's also this taboo feeling about following your desires or your
mm-hmm,
little intuitive pulls throughout the day. Oh, I want to take a rest. Oh, I want to eat this. Oh, I want to do this. You know what? I want to work out more today. The next day, I don't want to work out so much.
Mhm.
I planned on doing Pilates, but I feel like going on a walk today. There
Mhm.
can be such this like glorification of discipline and following rules and
Mhm.
structure that it creates actually a lack of rapport with
Yeah.
your intuition, and that disrupts your relationship with your body, with food. It can significantly impact how empowered you feel to, follow that urge that, maybe I need to leave this company, or maybe
Mhm.
I need to become a freelance dancer instead of pursuing a more traditional approach, or, you know, maybe I need to take a year off. If you just are constantly denying that internal nudge, you're
Mhm.
gonna stop being able to connect to it at a certain point, not permanently, but it can be hard to restore that, and so I love that your approach is integrative, because I think that's
Yeah.
what we really need.
Yeah, and as you said, sometimes those really disciplined behaviors
Mhm.
are coming from a good place,
Yeah,
obviously, but it can um, turn into something negative. And that's something that is sometimes glorified by teachers, directors, other dancers and peers. But what we don't often recognize is the development of obsessive or isolating patterns and behaviors
mm,
that really actually cause physical as well as mental harm.
yeah,
And it keeps us from socializing and enjoying life and having a balance towards life.
yeah,
Um, and so it's really, I think a lot of dancers, myself included, I was stuck in that cycle for so long.
mm,
Um, and it's definitely life changing to be outside of that now and being able to look in and kind of learn from my past experiences in that for sure.
absolutely. And I also feel like sharing the encouragement about, like, if anybody watching has felt like their body has failed them, or
Mm,
they have tried to diet, or they have tried to become a professional dancer, but they've been told that their body isn't good enough in some way, and then they see other dancers who have a certain body type, or they've restricted themselves enough to look a certain way, and those dancers achieve success. And there can be this envy and this guilt that many dancers carry of, why did it work for them? I guess I'm just not good
mm,
enough. But I feel like sharing that there is actually a blessing in not experiencing success for something that is truly not a successful behavior. Because when you
mhm.
experience such um, validation of your unhealthy patterns, it is
Mhm.
very hard to escape that. And
Yeah.
everything after that will feel almost like a failure. I think it's almost a blessing sometimes when something that at its core is, it seems desirable, but it's actually unhealthy. I think it's actually great when you fail at that in a way, because
Yeah.
then you're free to pursue a healthier way of living, without that pull of, gosh, that really worked for me and life was so good back then, Sometimes it's great when it doesn't work out.
Yeah, and as you said, when you do have those successes that come about from unhealthy behavior,
Mhm.
it makes you feel like that you are stuck and that you have to do that in order to keep up with that success, and that ultimately leads to you know burnout or
Yeah,
injury or just having to quit dance because you are not physically and mentally well. Um, and I definitely experienced that myself. And then contrasting that with experiencing really great successes from with healthy behavior
yeah,
um, is just so rewarding.
it
And
is.
um, it really makes you feel like like I have a healthy body and a healthy mindset, and my body is giving me the strength to be able to do this.
Yes.
And this is amazing and so special. And it makes dancing so much more meaningful
Yeah,
and special and so much more my own rather than me dancing for other people's approval. It's
right.
really just because it's something that I absolutely love to do.
Yes, and you
For
get that
sure.
joy of knowing that
Mm.
the success you have achieved is sustainable. You don't have to feel
Mhm.
like that fear of, "Oh, what if I can't keep this up?" Because you know you
Yeah.
can for as long as you're meant to do it, you know? And so
Mhm.
that's a really great point. I hope that's really encouraging to people who are watching. I imagine it is. So I should go ahead and ask the last question so this isn't
Yes.
too long. But thank you again for what you've shared so far. It's
Oh, of
gold.
course.
Last question is, what patterns or really habits do you think dancers can start to implement into their routines while they're staying at home in order to start working on that relationship with themselves and with food?
Absolutely. Um, One of the first things I thought of was cleaning up social media. During this time, we have so much less physical connection with other people. So we are relying on technology in order to stay in touch, which technology is an amazing thing. But
Right.
sometimes it can kind of take us down into a rabbit hole in terms of whether on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube of seeing other dancers
Mm,
or people who are promoting unhealthy um, food or exercise behaviors that really kind of perpetuate negative self talk.
mm.
And so I would just encourage you to just, unfollow those accounts.
Unfollow.
just do it.
Unsub.
It doesn't have to be a personal, you know, and it doesn't have to be a personal thing. It's just doing what is best for you to be in a healthy mental state.
Yeah.
Um, and then also write down things positive about yourself that don't have to do with your physical appearance.
Mm,
So starting to focus on how your body feels rather than what you see yourself as. So what about your personality makes you unique? What skills do you have? What do you love about yourself? So having those things to look back on when you are having those difficult days.
mm.
Um, and then start ditching food rules. Start recognizing where you are putting restrictions on yourself in terms of what you are eating and how you are eating. Um, and start working against those. It's not going to happen overnight or all at once, but just start honoring your hunger cues and the cravings that your body has. And see if you notice any sort of changes in your mood or your energy levels. And especially if those are positive ones, write them down. Again, it can be something that you can reference back to when you are kind of questioning, is this the right thing for you?
Yeah.
Um, and then, especially during this time when we are more confined to who we're able to see and talk to someone that you trust, whether they're in your household with you or call, email,
Mm,
Skype, do whatever you need to do. We can all use more support during this time. But especially if you are starting to change your relationship with food or with your body, definitely having that extra support is really helpful
yeah.
to kind of keep you encouraged and on that path. Another one is not using a scale. I know that this can be a habit for so many dancers. Whether you need to throw it away completely or take the batteries out, whatever you need to do, um, weight um, is not a factor for your health, and it's not something that needs to be obsessed over, especially during this time. I feel like that might be something because it's like a physical number, so it can be used as a way to track progress. When in actuality, it can lead to some really unhealthy behavioral patterns. Um,
Totally.
and then something that is helpful not only during this time, but also when you go back to dance is having a hobby or interest outside of ballet. And a lot of people are like, that's counterintuitive. Shouldn't I just focus all my energy on ballet?
No.
No. It's so helpful to have something that you can just enjoy for yourself and that grows you as a whole individual outside of dance, whether. it's something that you want to continue after you finish dancing, or even while you're dancing, just to know that you have something when dance isn't necessarily going your way. You have something else in your life that you're passionate about and that you look forward to doing, is so helpful in trying to create that balance that we're looking for as dancers. And then next is just allowing yourself to rest.
Yeah.
There are so many Instagram live classes with all these amazing people, and there's all of these, workout videos coming out, and it's good to have permission to just allow yourself to take a break.
Mhm.
It's a really unprecedented and difficult time right now, and I know a lot of dancers and students are missing performances and special, um, special auditions or things that were supposed to happen this spring. And so it's really hard to kind of get over that loss. And so use this opportunity to take a physical and mental break from dance, even if it's just for a week.
Yeah.
But just allow your body to kind of just decompress. Like dance will be there when studios reopen.
It will.
And you don't have to give yourself 3 hours of ballet class every day. And I would actually encourage you not to do that because that will probably cause you to burn out and be tired by the time that studios do reopen. So just really allowing yourself to take a break. It sounds counterintuitive, but it can really be helpful in terms of especially reestablishing your relationship with food and with your
Mhm.
body.
Absolutely. And when a dancer embraces rest, it's
Mhm.
again like with that thing I'm passionate about talking about, like reclaiming your ownership, your choice. Um, when you rest, it is actually a discipline in a way. It's, I
Mhm.
think, a huge blessing that we get to rest, and certainly a privilege in a way. But
Yeah.
when a dancer chooses to rest, you also claim to yourself internally that you are not enchained or enslaved to dancing. It doesn't own you. You can
Mhm.
separate with it whenever you need to. You can differentiate,
Yeah.
in realizing that you can choose if you want to take a week off. And if you can't, I do understand that some dancers are required to show up to class.
Mhm.
Realize that if you feel pressure to be doing more than what is asked for you
Yeah.
of you, or if you feel pressure to be perfect in those classes,
Mhm.
recognize that there are many other opportunities in your day to reclaim that opportunity to take time for yourself. And that's not actually a selfish thing. It is a really necessary thing to tell your mind that, hey, we are allowed, we, like just how I talk to my mind, we are allowed to take time and to take time to be restored so that when I do
Mhm.
take class, I have more to give.
Yeah.
That's so
Absolutely.
important, just claiming that freedom. And then when you recognize you're still alive and you can still dance after taking a week off if you can, or just taking one class a day instead of three, um,
Yeah.
when you realize things are still okay, it further reinforces in your mind that you do not have to do XYZ in order to be okay.
Yeah.
You do have to rest in order to be okay.
Yes.
It's going to catch
Yep,
up with
you
you if you
do.
don't.
Yes. Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah, and I think it's also helpful knowing all like every dancer right now is in the same boat.
yeah,
It's different. I was talking to another dancer about this. It feels a lot different when you are injured and you're trying to come back from an injury and you're seeing everyone else getting these opportunities
right.
and progressing where you feel like you're going backwards. And what's really unique about this time is that we're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
And so we can all be like, we're all struggling with this, we're all going through it. And so having that community, I think is really important. And um, really fostering, it's a really cool time right now to be able to foster healthy relationships. around dance and around food and around our bodies, because this is a different time like any
Yeah.
other, and it's really providing us the space to explore those things outside of a ballet studio all at once. All of
Yes.
us all at once.
Yeah, man, it's like a crash course in reframing too.
Yeah.
This is definitely something I wanted to fit in before we finish the video, which
Yeah.
is that if you have trouble resting or looking at certain foods that were on your bad list and you're like, okay, I'm trying to eat intuitively today and it's hard, or if you see your body fluctuate and you don't instantly like what you see, this is such a good time to lean into that discomfort and instead of being consumed by thoughts that initially come up like, oh gosh, I don't like the way my body looks, or I'm gross, or I'm out of shape, or whatever. This is your chance to pause, practice awareness of those thoughts, and instead of obeying them, to reframe and to say, no, when I feel really full and satisfied because I ate what I wanted to, I didn't fail. I'm not, I'm not lacking discipline. This is my choice to heal, or this means that I'm taking care of myself. This means I'm nourishing more than just my body. I'm nourishing my soul, or it's your chance to dance because you want to. And if you don't want to, awesome. Follow that, so this is our chance to kind of jump outside of the perspective we've been living in, just kind of like get off the conveyor belt for a second and to look at all the different ways you can go from here and choose how you want to live your life going forward. Choose how you want to think about food, how you want to think about your body, how you want to interact with dance. This is your time to re-enter thoughtfully after taking some time away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Leah, I think this was a good thing. If anyone's still watching, comment. Let us know what you thought. Give us a like. I should be a good YouTuber and like say that at the beginning. Smash the like button, you guys. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your wisdom and your openness and sharing your story. I know this will really bless some dancers out there. So thank you, Leah. And before I go, I'll say I'm going to have your information down in the description box and probably on the screen too, so dancers can get in touch with you, follow you on Instagram, check out your website, email you to work with you. I'm going to make sure they know how to get in touch with you. So check that out, you guys, if you're still watching. Well, thank you, Leah. I guess we should say adios. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye, guys.
Bye.